At 2:11 in the morning, the man wearing a surgeon's coat put both hands around the wounded admiral's throat. For 1 second, nobody saw him do it. Room 908 was dim except for the green pulse of the monitor, the soft blue numbers above the bed, and a strip of light leaking through the half-closed bathroom door. Vice Admiral Thomas Rainer lay propped against 2 pillows with his left side wrapped, one shoulder immobilized, and an oxygen line beneath his nose. He had been awake 10 minutes earlier. Now he was not moving. The man beside him was supposed to be Dr. Julian Ross from vascular surgery. He had the badge, the white coat, the surgical cap, the mask. He had even carried a tablet with the Admiral's name on the screen. What he did not have was a reason to be pressing down on a 62-year-old man's throat while the door was almost shut. Nurse Leah Arden saw it through the narrow glass panel from the corridor. She did not scream. That was the first thing everyone remembered later. Her medication tray hit the counter. The door opened hard enough to strike the stopper. The fake surgeon turned. His hands came away from the Admiral. "Step back," Leah said. The man did not. He reached toward the bed again. Leah crossed the room. There was no dramatic warning, no exchange of threats. She caught his wrist, drove his arm away from the Admiral, and the two of them hit the side of the chair. The man swung with his free hand. Leah ducked. He tried to wrench loose. She held on. There was a sharp crack. The fake surgeon screamed. His wrist bent at an angle it had not held 1 second earlier. The sound brought the night staff running. The man stumbled backward, clutching his arm, and Leah shoved the rolling stool between him and the bed. "Security!" someone shouted from the corridor. The attacker looked at Leah. Not shocked, not confused. Recognition. "That was worse. You," he said. Leah's face changed. "Only slightly. You should have stayed invisible." Then hospital security hit the room. 2 officers drove him against the wall. A third reached the bed. Someone called a rapid response. Someone else called military security. The room filled with voices. Leah did not look at the attacker again. She was already beside the Admiral. "Admiral Rainer." No response. She checked him. His pulse was there, fast. His breathing was shallow. A red mark was already rising along the side of his neck. "Sir, open your eyes." His eyelids moved. Leah leaned closer. "Stay with me." Rainer's eyes opened. Gray, unfocused. Then they found her. For a moment, pain and medication kept his face empty. Then something older moved through it. Recognition. Not of the nurse in teal scrubs. Of the woman underneath them. His lips parted. "Arden?" Leah went very still. The night resident looked between them. Dr. Everett Sloan, chief of cardiothoracic surgery, appeared in the doorway less than 30 seconds later. His white coat thrown over dark trousers, his expression furious at being summoned, and then instantly altered by what he saw. The fake surgeon on the floor. Security. The Admiral bruised at the throat. Leah beside the bed. Rainer looked directly at her and said the words nobody at Tidewater Memorial had ever heard attached to her name. "Chief Arden." The room became silent. Leah's badge said, "Registered Nurse." For 5 years, that was all anyone here had needed to know. Dr. Sloan had called her competent but difficult. He had called her overcautious. He had written that she had a persistent tendency to exceed the expected interpretive boundaries of bedside nursing. 3 hours earlier, he had removed her from the Admiral's primary team. Now the Admiral of the United States Atlantic Fleet was staring at her as if she had stepped out of a grave. "Sir," Leah said quietly. Rainer swallowed and winced. His eyes shifted toward the attacker, then back to Leah. "He found me." The words were weak. but everyone heard them. Leah looked at the man pinned against the wall. The attacker smiled through the pain. And in that moment, she understood something that turned the assault from a hospital attack into something much larger. The fake surgeon had not come to kill a famous admiral. He had come to stop an investigation, and somehow he already knew exactly who Leah Arden used to be. Before we go any further, if you like stories about quiet people who are ignored until the moment everything goes wrong, subscribe and stay with me to the end. Because breaking that fake surgeon's wrist was not the most important thing Leah Arden did that night. The most important thing was realizing he was not working alone. And tell me in the comments what city or country you're watching from. I always want to see how far these stories travel. Now let's go back 18 hours. Because at 8:03 that morning, Vice Admiral Thomas Rainer was not in room 908. There was no fake surgeon, no military lockdown, no NC's team in the lobby. And nobody at Tidewater Memorial knew that the quiet nurse arguing with a broken infusion pump had once kept special operations teams alive in places that did not appear on public maps. At 8:03 a.m., Leah Arden was standing in Trauma 4 with one hand on a pump that had failed its self-test twice. She pressed the button again. The machine beeped. Failed. Still dead? Asked Priya Shah from the doorway. Leah looked at the screen. It's not dead. It says failed. It's being dramatic. Priya leaned against the frame. You talk to equipment like it has personality. Equipment has personality. That one hates you. That one hates everybody. Leah unplugged it, attached a red service tag, and rolled it toward the equipment alcove. She was 37, medium height, lean without looking athletic, with dark ash-blonde hair twisted into a low knot at the nape of her neck. Her eyes were gray-green. Her face was calm in a way some people mistook for detachment, until they had watched her sit with a frightened family for an hour after everyone else left. She had worked at Tidewater Memorial Medical Center for 5 years and 2 months. Most of the staff knew almost nothing about the 14 years before that. They knew she had been military. They assumed nursing. They were technically correct. That was the useful thing about partial truths. Her badge read, Leah Arden, RN Trauma Services. No rank, no unit, no deployment history, no mention of the Navy, no mention of the Special Operations Medical Support Group that had once listed her as Chief Petty Officer Arden. No mention of Red Tide, Ardent Glass, Black Harbor, or any of the other operations whose names meant nothing to civilians and too much to the people who had been there. Leah preferred it that way. At 8:11, she found an antibiotic order that did not match the allergy noted in a patient's chart. She called the resident. At 8:16, the order was corrected. At 8:29, she noticed an elderly man in Bay 6 was becoming quieter rather than more comfortable. His blood pressure had fallen 9 points. His skin was cooler. The surgical note described him as stable. Leah called Dr. Shu. By 8:41, the patient was back on a monitor with fluids adjusted and new imaging ordered. Nothing dramatic happened. That meant it was a good catch. At 8:52, Dr. Everett Sloan entered the department. Leah knew he had arrived because the volume of the room changed. Not louder, more careful. Sloan was 53, tall, narrow through the waist, silver beginning evenly at both temples, with a face hospital marketing liked because it suggested authority without visible effort. His white coat fit perfectly. His shirts were always pale blue or white. He wore a dark watch that looked expensive enough to make younger residents nervous. He was also one of the best cardiothoracic surgeons on the East Coast. Leah disliked him. The two facts did not conflict. Sloan found her at the central station. Arden. She looked up. Doctor, you changed the order in 6. I called Sue. You flagged it. Yes. He was already aware of the trend. Leah looked at the chart. He became aware after I called. Sloane's jaw moved slightly. Priya became very interested in a stack of blank forms. Sloane said, "There is a distinction between observation and interpretation." "Yes. You keep crossing it." The patient's pressure was falling. "I am not disputing the observation." "Then we agree." Sloane stared at her. Leah had learned that agreeing with Dr. Sloane sometimes irritated him more than arguing. "You are assigned intake today," he said. "I'm scheduled trauma 2. Changed." "When?" 6 minutes ago." "Why?" "Command transfer." Leah's hand stopped on the mouse. "What kind?" "Military." "That narrows it down." Sloane ignored the comment. "High profile, protected identity until cleared, multiple injuries, estimated arrival 20 minutes. Mechanism? Industrial incident." Leah looked at him. "Industrial where?" Sloane's expression hardened. "You do not need to investigate the intake. I need to prepare for it. Blunt trauma, possible blast exposure, hypotension in transport. That is enough." It was not enough. But Leah nodded. "Who is attending?" "I am." That was unusual. Sloane did not take ordinary trauma intakes unless there was a chest component or a name important enough to reach administration. "Who is the patient?" Leah asked. Sloane looked at her. "Mr. Thomas Ray." The name meant nothing. The way he said it did. "Protected?" "Yes." "Security detail?" "On arrival." "Blood type?" "Being confirmed." "Anticoagulants?" "Unknown." "Then I need uncrossed blood available." Sloane's eyes narrowed. "Standard protocol already covers it." "Good." Leah stood. He said, "And Arden?" She stopped. "This is not one of your military stories." Leah turned. For a moment, neither moved. Priya stared at the forms so hard she could probably see through them. Leah said, "I don't tell military stories." "Exactly." Sloane walked away. Priya waited 3 seconds. "What was that?" Dr. Sloane being charming. "No, the military thing." Leah rolled the tagged pump toward the alcove. "I served." "I knew that." Then, mystery solved. Priya followed her. "Army?" "No." "Air Force?" "No." "Coast Guard?" Leah looked at her. "Do I look that sensible?" Priya smiled. "Navy." Leah did not answer. "That means yes. It means I have work." At 9:07, the first black SUV entered the ambulance lane. At 9:08, a second arrived behind it. At 9:09, an ambulance came through the gate under escort. Leah was already in intake 1. The doors opened. 3 uniformed Navy security personnel moved first. Then the paramedics. Then the gurney. The man on it was older than the false name suggested. 60s. Broad shoulders even beneath the trauma blanket. Short silver hair wet with sweat. Blood along the left side of his face. His right hand gripped the edge of the mattress with the controlled force of someone using pain as a task rather than a complaint. The first thing Leah noticed was his breathing. The second was the bruising at the base of his neck. The third was the 4-star challenge coin taped inside the clear property bag under the stretcher. Not a 4-star Army coin. Navy. Fleet Command. She knew before anyone told her. Vice Admiral Thomas Rainer. The name landed in her chest like something dropped from a height. For half a second, the room disappeared. She saw a different place. Red dust. A canvas surgical shelter. A young lieutenant with the same gray eyes and blood across his teeth. Caleb Rainer, 29 years old, the Admiral's only son. Chief, his voice in her memory. Not her rank. A request. Chief, stay. Leah came back to the room. Nobody noticed the half-second. She was moving again. Pressure? 88/56 and falling, the paramedic said. Got one line. Couldn't maintain a second. Possible left rib fractures, left clavicle, abdominal tenderness. Brief loss of consciousness at scene. Mechanism? Blast and structural collapse at Norfolk Marine Logistics Pier 4. Leah looked at the uniformed security officer. The man gave the smallest possible shake of his head. Not here. Sloan entered. Move. The trauma team moved. Leah cut away part of the Admiral's shirt. There was bruising across the left chest. A deeper mark over the shoulder. A thin line of blood near the ear. She listened. One side reduced. Not absent. Reduced. Left breath sounds down, she said. Sloan looked once. I hear them. So do I. They're down. Portable chest. Already called. He looked at her. Leah did not. The Admiral's eyes opened. He looked directly at her. For 1 second, she thought he recognized her. Then pain washed over his face. Where? Tidewater Memorial, Leah said. His gaze sharpened. No names. No names. His eyes held hers. Something moved behind them. Not recognition. Not yet. A body remembering a voice before a mind found the file. Sloan leaned in. Mr. Ray, I'm Dr. Everett Sloan. You were injured at the pier. We're going to evaluate your chest and abdomen. Rainer looked at him. Others? Sloan glanced at the security officer. Leah answered because nobody else did. 2 other casualties are in transit. 1 is stable. I don't have the 3rd status yet. The Admiral closed his eyes. Find out. Sloan said. Right now you need to focus on yourself. Rainer opened his eyes again. Find out. Leah said. I will. Sloan gave her a look. Rainer heard the promise. That was enough. At 9:16, his oxygen saturation dropped. At 9:17, the portable image was still 2 minutes away. At 9:18, Leah noticed the left side of his chest had changed. Small. A tighter movement. A subtle shift at the neck. The kind of thing that was obvious only if you had spent years watching bodies fail before machines caught up. His chest is worsening. Sloan said, we know he has thoracic injury. His compensation changed. Arden. The monitor alarm sharpened. Leah looked at the numbers. Then the Admiral. He's losing time. Sloan's face changed. He examined again. This time he heard what she had heard. The room accelerated. Leah had the needed equipment ready before the order finished leaving his mouth. Sloan did not thank her. He should not have needed to. 30 seconds later, Rainer's oxygen improved. At 9:26, ultrasound showed fluid where they did not want fluid. At 9:31, the blood bank called. At 9:38, one of the other pier casualties arrived. At 9:44, Commander Jonah Reed from Naval Protective Services entered the trauma bay and spoke quietly with hospital administration. At 9:51, Leah heard the words, deliberate secondary blast for the first time. Not accident, deliberate. She was changing an IV bag when Reed stepped beside her. Ms. Arden. She kept working. Commander. His eyes narrowed. You know rank tabs from 3 feet. I worked around Navy. Where? Places. He studied her. Reed was 44, compact, dark-haired, with the stillness of someone who did not waste movement. He wore civilian clothes under a dark jacket and an earpiece almost invisible behind his right ear. You know who the patient is. Yes. Who told you? The property bag. He followed her glance. The challenge coin had been removed. Too late, Reed said. His identity stays inside this floor. I know. No social posts, no casual calls, No names in unsecure chart notes. I know. He looked at her. You keep saying that like you mean more than policy. Leah met his eyes. I do. Something changed in his face. Not recognition. Professional recalculation. Before he could ask another question, Sloane called from the bed. Arden. She moved. Reed watched her go. At 10:04, Rainer's pressure fell again. At 10:09, Sloane made the decision for surgery. At 10:12, Leah prepared the transfer. The Admiral was more alert now, but pale. As the gurney rolled toward the surgical elevator, his hand moved. His fingers caught Leah's wrist. Not hard. Enough. She looked down. His gray eyes were clearer. Have we met? There it was. Leah's pulse changed. No, sir. His fingers stayed. Don't call me sir if we haven't. Don't call me sir if we haven't. Leah almost smiled. Fair. He released her. The doors opened. Sloane stepped inside with the surgical team. Rainer kept looking at Leah. Then the doors closed. At 10:13, Leah stood in the corridor alone. Priya came beside her. That was Thomas Rainer. Leah looked at her. Priya lowered her voice. I know faces. You know too many faces. He's on television. Not today. Priya nodded. You know him. No. That was another bad lie. Leah started walking. Go check Bay 6. Priya followed. You are absolutely impossible. So I'm told. At 10:28, a dark gray sedan entered the employee garage. The driver parked on level 4. He sat for 37 seconds. Then he opened a hard plastic case. Inside was a hospital credential. DR, Julian Ross Vascular Surgery. The photograph was his. The name was not. He clipped the badge to a clean white coat, placed a surgical cap in his pocket, checked his phone. One message. Target confirmed. Surgery. Wait. He deleted it. Then he walked toward the hospital. At 10:36, the man calling himself Dr. Julian Ross entered through the east staff entrance. The scanner flashed green. He did not look surprised. At 10:41, he bought coffee in the surgical lobby. At 10:47, he asked a clerk which elevator reached the cardiovascular ICU. At 10:49, he smiled when she told him. Nothing about him looked urgent. That was why nobody remembered his face until later. At 11:02, Leah was documenting the Admiral's intake when Dr. Sloane stopped beside her. You spoke over me twice. Leah kept typing. I spoke to the patient once. You told him you would find out about the other casualties. He asked. That information was not yours to promise. I promised to find out, not to disclose. Sloane's jaw tightened. You also called the chest change before imaging. Yes, you were correct. Leah looked up. He disliked saying it. That made it more useful. Thank you. That was not praise. I know. Sloane leaned closer. You have an unusual amount of confidence in high-acuity rooms. Would you prefer less? That is not the point. What is? The point is that you move as though you expect everyone else to catch up. Leah thought about helicopters that left before people were ready. Field operating rooms that ran on minutes nobody had. A lieutenant named Caleb Rainer saying stay because he already knew he was dying. She looked at Sloane. Sometimes they have to. His expression cooled. You are a civilian trauma nurse. Yes. Act like one. Leah stood. What exactly does that look like? Sloane stared. She waited. He did not have an answer that would sound good out loud. That was not unusual either. At 11:10, Priya approached carrying a specimen bag. Leah. What? The other peer casualty, Petty Officer Marcus Bell. He's asking for Admiral. Leah lifted one hand. Priya stopped. Room 7. Leah went. Marcus Bell was 28, bruised along one side of his face, with a splinted forearm and the unfocused exhaustion of someone whose adrenaline had finally run out. He saw Leah. Is he alive? Yes. Bell exhaled so hard his whole body shook. Others? One more arriving. I don't have the status. Bell closed his eyes. They hit us after the alarm. Leah sat beside him. What alarm? His eyes opened. He looked at the security officer by the door. The officer said nothing. Bell swallowed. Pier fire alarm. We moved the Admiral through the west access lane. Then something went off under the maintenance platform. Leah's face stayed still. Who knew the route? Bell looked at her. A lot of people. Exactly. The security officer stepped forward. Nurse Arden. Leah stood. I'm done. Bell caught her sleeve. Wait. She looked down. They knew where we'd move him. The officer said, Petty officer. Bell ignored him. The Admiral was reviewing Fleetshore. Leah had never heard the name. The officer's face changed. Bell saw it. He stopped. Leah did not ask more. That mattered. She squeezed his shoulder once. Rest. Outside, the officer followed. You heard nothing. Leah turned. I heard a patient under stress. You asked operational questions. I asked what alarm. You asked who knew the route. Because if the answer is everyone, your problem is not a secret route. The officer stared at her. Leah walked away. At 11:21, Commander Reed intercepted her by the elevators. What did Bell tell you? That you should talk to Bell. He said Fleetshore. Leah looked at him. You heard. I was outside. Then why ask me? To see what you would do with it. And? You didn't repeat it. Leah pressed the elevator button. Reed said, Who were you? The doors opened. Leah stepped inside. A nurse. The doors closed before he could answer. At 11:44, Leah saw Julian Ross for the first time. She did not know his name yet. He stood at the far end of the surgical corridor speaking with an administrator. White coat, dark hair, blue cap tucked into one pocket. Nothing remarkable. Then he looked at her. Not at her badge, at her face. And for half a second, the stranger stopped talking. Leah noticed. The administrator did not. The man smiled at something she said. Leah kept walking. 5 steps later, she looked back. He was watching her. At 11:46, Leah wrote down the time. Not because she knew why, because uncertainty without a timestamp became memory, and memory became argument. She had learned that a long time ago. At 12:03, the hospital cafeteria served chicken soup that tasted mostly like hot salt. Leah ate half. Priya ate fries. You are staring at the door, Priya said. No. You have looked at it 14 times. You counted? I am avoiding charting. Leah took another spoonful. Priya leaned forward. What's Fleetshore? Leah stopped. Why? You said it under your breath. I did not. You absolutely did. Leah looked at her. Priya lifted both hands. Fine. Leah's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She looked. The message contained no greeting. Leah Arden? She did not reply. 10 seconds later. If this is Chief Arden, call Commander Reed. Do not use this number. Leah's appetite disappeared. She stood. Priya looked up. What? Chart. That is not an answer. It's still good advice. Leah left. At 12:09, Commander Reed met her in an empty consultation room. He closed the door. Who contacted you? Leah showed him the message. His face hardened. That number? No idea. Did you respond? No. Good. Why would someone call me Chief? Reed looked at her. The silence answered too much. Leah's voice cooled. Commander. He took a breath. Your name appears in an old restricted medical annex, tied to an operation where Admiral Rainer's son was killed. Leah went completely still. Reed continued. We pulled the annex because Rainer asked if the nurse on intake had ever served under a different status. Your name triggered. Leah looked at the wall. You told him? No. We confirmed you served. He's in surgery. Who else saw the pull? Command records personnel. How many? 4 authorized. And how did a stranger get my number within an hour? Reed's expression changed. That is the question. Leah looked at him. Your leak isn't only inside the hospital. No. Fleet Shore. Reed did not answer. That's connected. He did not answer again. Leah stepped closer. If somebody is searching a restricted annex tied to the Admiral while he is under protected status, you have a compromised information chain. I know. Then stop treating me like the exposure. I'm not. You asked who I was 3 times. Because if someone else knows, I need to know why. Leah stared at him. Reed's voice lowered. Chief Arden. Don't call me that. Why? Because I'm not. Your record says you were. My record says a lot of things that ended. The room held. Reed nodded once. Fine. Nurse Arden. Better. He opened the door. Stay inside secured floors. Leah laughed once. Not humor. You think I'm a target? I think somebody searched you after seeing you near the Admiral. That is not an answer. It's the one I have. Leah looked toward the surgical elevators. How long until he's out? Estimated 90 minutes. Then find your leak in 90. Reed almost smiled. You really were a chief. Leah walked away. At 12:22, Julian Ross stood inside a locked service corridor on level 8. He removed his phone. One message waited. Arden confirmed. Former NSW Medical. Do not engage unless required. Ross read it twice. Then typed, understood. He put the phone away and smiled. At 12:37, surgery called down. The Admiral's condition was stable. At 12:41, Leah let herself breathe. At 12:44, Sloan found her. You are no longer assigned to the Rainer case. Leah looked at him. I wasn't told I was assigned. You were intake. Why am I removed? Security concern. What concern? Sloane's eyes moved toward the corridor. I was told you have prior connection. Who told you? Administration. Leah felt anger arrive. Cold, useful. Did administration tell you the connection? No. Then why remove me? Because protected patients require clean boundaries. Leah stared at him. Clean. Do not make this personal. You just made it personal. Sloan lowered his voice. You have not disclosed the nature of your prior military service in any meaningful way. It is in HR. Federal medical service is not meaningful. It satisfied employment requirements. You were apparently involved in an operation concerning the patient's son. Leah's face changed. Sloan saw it. For the first time, some of his certainty weakened. He continued more carefully. That creates conflict. No. It creates emotional history. Yes. That can affect judgment. Leah stepped closer. You know what affected judgment this morning? Sloan did not answer. His chest. He looked away first. That is not the same issue. No, it's the issue that mattered. You are removed from the case. Leah held his gaze. Document why. His jaw tightened. I will. Good. She walked away. At 1:03, A nurse named Elena Park took over the Admiral's post-operative preparation. At 1:17, Leah checked bell. At 1:31, she caught a medication duplication in Trauma 5. At 1:52, she sat with a woman whose husband had been moved to surgery after a construction fall. At 2:14, she saw the fake surgeon again. This time, he was wearing the blue surgical cap. He stood beside the elevator on 8. Leah was on 7. The doors were closing between them. He looked down. Their eyes met. The doors shut. Leah pressed the call button again. Nothing. She used the stairs. By the time she reached 8, he was gone. She went to the surgical desk. "Who was the vascular surgeon who just came through?" The clerk frowned. "Which one?" "Dark hair, about 6 feet, white coat, blue cap." "Ross? Full name?" "Julian Ross." "What service?" "Vascular consult." "For whom?" The clerk's expression changed. "I can't give you that." Leah leaned closer. Was he asking about the protected patient? The clerk looked past her. "You're not on that case." That was an answer. Leah found Reed. At 2:21, they stood in the security room. "Julian Ross," she said. Reed typed. "No active consult under that name." Leah's stomach tightened. "Hospital directory?" He searched. "Dr. Julian Ross, credentialed locum vascular surgeon. Temporary privileges activated yesterday." "Photo?" A profile loaded. The photograph was the man. Reed stopped moving. "Why?" Leah pointed. "That badge was activated yesterday." "Yes. When was he scheduled?" Reed opened another screen. "No scheduled cases." "Who requested privileges?" "Medical staffing." "Who requested the request?" He looked at her. "I'm calling security." At 2:24, the first internal alert went out. At 2:27, Julian Ross disappeared from camera coverage near the West Service elevator. At 2:32, security found his discarded white coat in an equipment room. At 2:35, the badge stopped responding. At 2:41, the hospital entered limited access lockdown. At 2:44, Dr. Sloan walked into the security room. "What is happening?" Reed answered. "Credentialed individual with false or compromised identity accessed this floor." Sloan looked at Leah. She said nothing. He looked at the photograph. "I know Ross." Reed turned. "You do?" "By reputation. He trained at Chesapeake Vascular." Leah looked at him. "You've met him?" Sloan stopped. "No." "Spoken to him?" "No." "Then you know a name." Sloan's expression tightened. Reed said, "The credential source is being verified." Sloan looked at Leah again. "How did you notice him?" "He noticed me." Silence. Reed said, "He had her number." Sloan's face changed. "What?" Leah looked at Reed. "Thank you. He needs the context." "No. He needs the operational fact." Sloan said, "Someone contacted you?" "Yes." "Why didn't you report it?" "I did. To me." "You are not security." His expression hardened. Leah did not apologize. At 2:53, the real Dr. Julian Ross was reached in Richmond. He was not at Tidewater Memorial. He had never applied for privileges there. He had never seen Admiral Thomas Rainer, and he was very interested in knowing why someone had used a 6-year-old professional headshot from a conference website. At 3:02, the hospital lockdown expanded. At 3:14, INSIS arrived. At 3:27, the name Fleetshore appeared on a whiteboard in a conference room nobody had planned to use that day. Fleetshore Maritime Systems was a defense logistics contractor. Emergency breathing systems. Shipboard fire suppression. Protective equipment. Medical oxygen hardware. Maintenance certifications. The company held contracts across 3 naval regions. Admiral Rainer had spent the last 6 months reviewing a series of equipment failures. 3 sailors had died in separate incidents. 2 official reports called them maintenance errors. One called the cause undetermined. Rainer did not believe in coincidences that repeated across procurement lines. Neither, apparently, did the person who had tried to kill him at Pier 4. Leah learned most of that from what people did not say around her. She was not invited to the NC's briefing. She was told to continue normal duties. So she did. At 3:46, she checked Bay 6. At 4:08, she helped stabilize a teenager with a severe asthma attack. At 4:31, she found Priya in the medication room crying. Leah closed the door. What happened? Priya wiped her face quickly. Nothing. That is not a thing. Priya laughed once through tears. My dad called. Bad? He saw police vehicles outside on the news. I told him I'm fine. Then he said my mother is making tea because she's scared, and I suddenly... She stopped. Leah handed her a tissue. Priya looked embarrassed. Sorry. Why? This is stupid. No. There's an assassin in the hospital and I'm crying because my mother made tea. Leah leaned against the counter. That sounds exactly like when people cry. Priya looked at her. You're not scared. Leah thought about the text message. The man watching her. Caleb Rainer's blood on her gloves 8 years earlier. Yes, she said. Priya blinked. You don't look scared. That isn't the same thing. How do you do that? Leah looked at her. You decide what the next useful thing is. Priya stared. That sounds rehearsed. It is. Military? Leah smiled faintly. Go drink water. Priya did. At 5:12, Rainer came out of surgery. The operation had controlled internal bleeding and repaired injuries to the left chest and shoulder. He was critical but stable. Commander Reed moved with him to ICU. Leah stood 20 feet away. Not assigned. Not invited. The gurney passed. Rainer's eyes were closed. His hand lay open over the blanket. For one moment, Leah saw his son's hand instead. Caleb had worn a silver ring on his right index finger because his sister gave it to him when he graduated. The ring had been cut off after he died. Leah had placed it in the property envelope herself. She turned away. Sloan saw. He said nothing. At 5:23, Leah's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She stared at it. No message. Just a call. She answered. Silence. Then a man's voice. You were difficult to forget. Leah went cold. Who is this? You know what happens when people keep old promises, Chief? Leah looked down the corridor. People moved normally. Too normally. What promise? The voice ignored the question. Rainer should have stopped asking. The line ended. Leah called Reed before the screen went dark. At 5:31, Insys took her phone. At 5:43, they confirmed the call routed through multiple relays and a disposable device. At 5:59, Special Agent Mara Quinn sat across from Leah in Consultation 3. Quinn was 40-something, dark hair cut short, no visible patience for performance. Tell me everything you remember about the man using Ross's identity. Leah did. Height, build, dominant hand uncertain, badge orientation, cap, shoes. The fact that his white coat pockets had been too flat for someone working a real service line. Quinn looked up. Explain that. Doctors carry things. Pens? Pens. Lists, scissors, gauze, phones, whatever they refused to put down. His coat looked staged. Quinn wrote, You noticed that at 11:44? I noticed something. I named it later. Important distinction. Yes. Quinn looked at her. You've given statements before. Yes. Military? Yes. Special operations? Leah looked toward the closed door. You have my file. I have enough of it. Then why ask? Because I want to hear what you choose to say. Leah almost smiled. Commander Reed does that too. He annoys me. That seems healthy. Quinn did not smile. Admiral Rainer's son. Leah's expression closed. Relevant? Possibly. The attacker called you chief. Your connection is one obvious route. He died 8 years ago. Operation? Leah waited. Quinn said, I know the code name. I'm not asking for details. Then what are you asking? Whether anyone from that operation would associate you personally with Rainer. Yes? How many? Dozens. Enemies? Leah looked at her. Probably. Specific? No. Quinn closed the notebook. You understand I need you off the floor. No. Ms. Arden, my patients are here. So is someone who called you by an old rank and told you the Admiral should have stopped asking questions. That is why I should not be alone. That is not the same as working. Leah looked through the glass toward the ICU corridor. Quinn followed her eyes. You think he'll come back? Yes. Why? He had access. He walked away before he got close. Security spooked him. No. Quinn's eyes narrowed. Leah continued. He was already leaving when I saw him on 8. He wanted to know the room, the access pattern, the staff. Today was reconnaissance. Quinn was quiet. And tonight? Leah looked at the clock. Tonight, he knows the Admiral will be sedated. At 6:18, ICU access doubled. At 6:30, all temporary medical credentials were suspended pending manual verification. At 6:47, hospital administration complained that the measure disrupted staffing. At 6:49, Agent Quinn told them disruption was preferable to homicide. At 7:02, Leah was ordered off the Rainer case again. This time by INSIS. She obeyed. Mostly. At 7:17, she checked on Bell. He was awake. Admiral? Out of surgery. Bell's face loosened. Good. Leah checked his IV site. Bell watched her. You're Arden. Yes? Chief Arden. Her hand stopped. Who told you? Bell swallowed. Commander Reed asked whether I remembered you. Do you? No, I wasn't in then. Leah nodded. Bell said, but my chief was. Who? Dawson. Leah knew the name. Eli Dawson. Field medic. Loud laugh. Hated powdered eggs. Alive, last she heard. Bell smiled weakly. He said you once stitched his face while yelling at him for trying to help. Leah almost smiled. He was bleeding on sterile supplies. He said you saved his hand. I did not. That's not how he tells it. People improve stories. Bell looked at her. Is that why you left? Leah stopped adjusting the line. Why? Because people made you into a story? The question was better than she expected. Partly. Bell nodded. My dad does that. Every time I deploy, he tells people I'm doing important secret work. What do you do? Inventory. Leah looked at him. Bell smiled. Very dangerous inventory. Heroic. Thank you. He became serious. Fleet shore. Leah looked at him. My friend Liam died on the Baron. She knew the ship name from the briefing. Bell continued. Breathing unit failed during a machinery fire. Report blamed maintenance. His jaw tightened. Liam maintained them. Leah said nothing. Admiral Rainer knew his mother. That's why he kept digging. There it was. The emotional shape beneath the procurement language. Not contracts. Names. Bell looked toward the window. If somebody did that on purpose, we don't know that. He didn't. Leah met his eyes. We don't know enough yet. Bell's voice broke. They called him careless. Leah sat beside him. The room was quiet. My friend was not careless. I believe you. You don't know him. No. Then why? Leah looked at the floor. Because people deserve the truth before they deserve a label. Bell's eyes filled. He looked away. At 7:41, Leah left his room. At 7:42, Dr. Sloan was waiting outside. You are involving yourself in an investigation. I checked a patient. You discussed Fleetshore. He brought it up. You should have redirected. He is grieving a friend. You are not a counselor. No. Sloan's frustration sharpened. You are not security. You are not NCIS. You are not command. You are not the attending physician. Leah looked at him. Do you want to keep listing things? He stopped. She continued quietly. You keep telling me what I'm not when the patient is telling me what he needs. That is exactly the problem. What problem? You have no off switch. The sentence landed. Leah went very still. Sloan saw it. He did not know why. He continued. You cannot carry every risk because you once worked somewhere that rewarded that behavior. Leah's voice changed. Rewarded. I didn't mean, no. For the first time that day, anger showed. Do not tell me what it rewarded. Sloan's face shifted. Leah stepped back. Then she did what she always did. Contained it. Bell is stable. His line is clean. He is frightened. That is my chart note. She walked away. Sloan stood there. At 8:06, the real Dr. Julian Ross sent NCIS a photograph of his old credential packet. At 8:19, analysts found the false badge had been created through a credentialing vendor used by 3 hospitals and 2 defense clinics. At 8:27, the vendor reported an unauthorized administrator login. At 8:43, that login traced to a laptop assigned to a Fleetshore subcontractor. At 8:51, the investigation changed shape. The fake surgeon was not a random killer who found a white coat. He had support, money, records, access. At 9:04, Leah was sitting in the break room eating crackers when Commander Reed entered. Agent Quinn wants you moved to a secure hotel. No, that wasn't a question. Then the answer is still no. Reed shut the door. Your home address is in hospital HR. So is yours somewhere. My home has federal protection tonight. Congratulations, Leah. She looked at him. He had never used her first name. You are not active duty. I know. You do not have to prove anything. Her face went blank. That is not what I'm doing. I think part of you is. Leah stood. Careful. Reed nodded. Fair. He sat. For a moment, neither spoke. Then he said, I was at Red Tide. Leah looked at him. Not many people used the name. Where? Outer security, second lift. She searched memory. A younger lieutenant. Blood on one sleeve. Blood on one sleeve. Face covered in dust. Reed. He nodded. You brought 4 of my people through. 3. 4. 1 died after transfer. He got home first. Leah looked away. Reed's voice softened. Caleb Rainer got home too. Her jaw tightened. Don't. He did. I said don't. Reed stopped. Silence. Then Leah said, he was alive when I handed him over. Yes. 21 minutes. Yes. I know the number. I know you do. She looked at him. You think that makes it better? No. Then what are you doing? Trying to explain why the Admiral asked for your name before he went under. Leah stopped breathing for 1 second. What? Reed looked at the floor. He said, "The nurse. Arden. Find out if it's her." Leah sat. Not because she wanted to, because her knees had become unreliable. Reed continued, "He remembers you." "He never met me. He read every report. That's not meeting. He knows who held his son's hand." Leah looked at him. The room blurred slightly. She hated that. "Who told him?" "Caleb did." Leah's face changed. Reed took a breath. "Not after. Before. Letters. Calls. He mentioned you." Leah looked down at her hands. "Why?" "Apparently you made terrible coffee and yelled at officers. That narrows nothing." Reed almost smiled. Then he said, "There's more." Leah looked up. "Caleb wrote a letter before that deployment. Standard family letter. It was delivered after he died." Her throat tightened. "Don't. Rainer has it. I don't want to know." "Okay." Reed stopped. That mattered. He did not push. After a minute, Leah said, "Secure hotel." "Yes." "After shift." "Now." "My shift ends at 11. Agent Quinn said 9. Agent Quinn is not my supervisor." "She can arrest you for interfering. For finishing a chart? Do not make me find out." Leah almost smiled. "You were less annoying 8 years ago. I was terrified of you. Better judgment." At 9:26, Leah agreed to leave at 10. At 9:41, ICU called. Admiral Rainer was awake. At 9:46, he asked for Nurse Arden. Sloan heard. So did Reed. So did half the night staff. Leah did not go. At 9:52, Rainer asked again. This time the message came through Dr. Elena Park. "He says he needs to tell you something." Leah looked at Reed. Reed looked at Agent Quinn. Quinn said, 5 minutes, door open, 2 officers. Sloan said, "She is not assigned." Quinn looked at him. "Doctor, that is not currently my largest concern." Sloan's jaw tightened. Leah almost enjoyed that. Almost. At 9:58, she entered room 908 for the first time. Rainer looked smaller in the bed than he had in trauma. That was what surgery did. It removed the uniform even when the patient had not been wearing one. The chest dressings, the immobilized shoulder, the oxygen, the bruising, the lines. Rank did not change any of it. His gray eyes opened. Arden. Leah stood near the foot of the bed. "Admiral." He looked at Reed. "Out." Reed said, "Sir, door open. You can stand there and pretend you can't hear." Reed looked at Quinn. Quinn nodded. They stepped into the corridor. Leah remained. Rainer looked at her. "You lied to me." "When?" "Intake. I asked if we had met. We hadn't." "You knew who I was." "Yes." "You knew Caleb." Leah's chest tightened. "Yes." The word changed the room. Rainer closed his eyes. When he opened them again, he looked older. "Sit." Leah sat. For a moment, neither spoke. Then he said, "You were with him." "Yes." "At the end." "Yes." His jaw trembled once. He controlled it. Was he afraid? Leah had answered that question in her head for 8 years. The truth did not become easier through rehearsal. Yes. Rainer looked away. Leah continued before fear could be misunderstood. He was afraid and he stayed brave. Those are not opposites. The Admiral's eyes filled. He looked back. "Thank you." Leah shook her head. "No. For telling me the truth." "I should have told you 8 years ago. You were under orders." "Not about that." He watched her. Leah looked at the blanket. He asked me to tell you something. Rainer went completely still. Leah's throat closed. She had carried the sentence across 8 years, 5 jobs, 3 apartments, and 1 entire life, built around not being Chief Arden anymore. He said, "Tell my dad I wasn't alone." Rainer's face broke. Not loudly. His eyes closed. Tears slipped into the lines beside them. Leah looked down. "He wasn't," she said. "I stayed." The Admiral's hand moved across the blanket. Leah put hers beneath it. His grip was weak. Human. "Thank you," he whispered again. This time Leah did not argue. They sat for nearly a minute. Then Rainer opened his eyes. "There was another thing." Leah waited. "He talked about you before that deployment." Reed said. "He said you were the only chief who could make a lieutenant feel 12 years old with one look." "That sounds accurate." Rainer almost smiled. Then his expression changed. "Fleet sure." Leah looked toward the open door. Rainer lowered his voice. 3 deaths. Maybe 5. Procurement testing falsified. You need to tell NSYS. I did. Then why tell me? Because someone inside the medical chain flagged my review schedule. Leah's eyes sharpened. Inside Navy medicine. Or contractor access to it. Ross. He's not Ross. I know. Rainer's fingers tightened weakly around hers. He will come back. Leah looked at him. How do you know? Because the pier failed. A chill moved through her. They intended to kill you there. Yes. And now they know you survived. Yes. Leah stood. Then you need to move. Rainer shook his head. Too unstable. Then harden the room. Reed is doing it. Leah looked toward the door. Rainer said, "And Arden?" She looked back. Stop trying to disappear. The sentence hit harder than she expected. She released his hand. I'm not. The Admiral looked at her with Caleb's gray eyes. Yes, you are. Leah had no answer. At 10:04, she left room 908. At 10:05, Sloan was waiting outside. He had heard enough to know the relationship was not a conflict of judgment. It was grief. His expression was different. Not softer, exactly. Less certain. Are you all right? Leah looked at him. The question sounded strange from him. No. He nodded. That seems reasonable. She almost laughed. Then the elevator doors opened. A transport aide stepped out pushing an empty wheelchair. Leah looked once. Kept walking. 3 seconds later, she stopped. The aide's badge was turned backward. Nothing unusual. People wore badges backward all the time. His shoes were surgical clogs. Also not unusual. His hands were bare. Still nothing. But he had come from a restricted elevator without escort during lockdown. Leah turned. Excuse me. The aide did not stop. Reed looked up from the nurse station. Leah said, Hey. The aide moved faster. Reed moved. Security stopped him at the corridor turn. He did not fight. That was almost worse. He raised both hands. Wrong floor. Reed took the badge. The name belonged to a transport employee currently eating dinner on level 2. The man was detained. He had no weapon, no obvious device, no direct link to Ross. At 10:19, NSYS called it a probable probe. At 10:31, Quinn canceled Leah's hotel transfer. You were right, Reed said. Leah looked at him. About? They're still testing access. That isn't good. No. Then stop sounding pleased. I'm not pleased. You look pleased. I'm pleased you noticed. That's worse. At 10:44, the ICU staff change was delayed and individually verified. At 11:03, Priya went home. At 11:07, Leah's shift officially ended. At 11:08, she did not leave. Sloan found her charting. You are off. Yes. Go home. No. Agent Quinn? Agrees. Sloan looked toward the Admiral's room, then back. You are not assigned. I know. He sighed. This is becoming a ritual. What? Me telling you your role. Then stop. His mouth almost moved. Not quite a smile. You are covering general ICU support until 1. Leah looked at him. That is an assignment. Yes. You're assigning me? Yes. Near the Admiral? Near all patients. She studied him. Sloan said, Do not make me regret personal growth. Leah nodded. Impossible promise. At 11:26, the real night settled in. Visitors left. Hallway lights dimmed. The hospital changed register. Monitor alarms became louder because human voices became fewer. Carts moved differently. Doors closed softer. Leah liked nights, not because they were calmer, because people performed less. At 11:43, Rainer slept. At 11:52, Bell's pain was controlled. At 12:08, Leah helped a confused post-operative patient find his glasses. At 12:17, someone delivered coffee to the security desk. At 12:29, one of the verified float nurses called in sick. At 12:41, Sloan went downstairs for a surgical consult. At 12:58, Agent Quinn received a call that took her to the command conference room. At 1:07, Commander Reed rotated one of the military guards. At 1:16, Leah saw a white coat at the far end of the ICU. She looked up. A surgeon walked toward room 908. Badge visible. Blue cap. Tablet. Verified nurse at the desk glanced once and let him pass. Leah stood. Doctor? The man turned. Different face. Dr. Patel. Real. He frowned. Yes? Sorry. He continued to room 906. Leah sat. Her body remained alert. At 1:28, she told herself that hypervigilance was not the same as intuition. At 1:34, she wrote a note. At 1:41, the monitor in room 908 flickered. Once, then returned. Leah looked. No alarm. Rainer slept. At 1:47, a message appeared on the staff board. Vascular Review, 908. Dr. Ross. Leah stared at it. Ross. The fake name. Her chair moved backward. She crossed the station. The clerk looked up. Who entered that? What? The consult. The clerk checked. Auto-populated from surgical request. There is no Ross. The clerk's face drained. Leah was already moving. At 1:53, the west service door opened. A man in a surgeon's coat stepped into the hall. Mask, cap, tablet. He did not look toward Leah. He walked to room 908. Leah hit the security call button under the desk. No response light. She hit it again. Nothing. Her pulse slowed. Not because she was calm, because her body had gone somewhere old. She followed. The man entered room 908. Leah reached the corridor glass. Inside, the fake surgeon stood beside the Admiral. He looked down at the sleeping patient. Rainer's eyes opened. The man leaned closer. Leah saw the Admiral's face change. Recognition of danger. Not person. Danger. The fake surgeon put one hand near the oxygen tubing, then the other at Rainer's throat. The door eased almost shut. At 2:11 in the morning, the man wearing a surgeon's coat put both hands around the wounded Admiral's throat. And Leah Arden saw him. This time, the story did not move backward. It moved very fast. The tray hit the counter. The door opened. Step back. The man turned. He reached toward Rainer again. Leah crossed the room. She caught his wrist. The two of them hit the chair. He swung. She moved. There was a crack. He screamed. Security came. Rainer opened his eyes. Chief Arden. Everyone froze, and the fake surgeon, clutching his broken wrist against his chest, looked directly at Leah. You should have stayed invisible. Then he smiled. Because even with 3 officers pinning him against the wall, he believed something else was still going to happen. Leah saw it. That smile. Not defeat. Timing. She looked at the clock. 2:13. Then at the hall. Reed. Commander Reed was already entering. What? He's waiting for something. The attacker's smile widened. At 2:14, every monitor on the east side of Level 9 went dark. For half a second, the darkness did not make sense. Hospitals were designed around the assumption that darkness was not allowed to happen. Backup power existed. Battery systems existed. Redundant circuits existed. That was why the silence after the monitors died felt wrong before anyone understood what had happened. Then emergency lights came on. Dim red strips along the floor. Battery alarms began sounding from individual devices. The entire ICU changed at once. Not panic, pressure. Every room became a question. Which patient could tolerate interruption? Which machine had switched correctly? Which one had not? Who needed hands before systems came back? Leah released the attacker to security and turned toward the hallway. Manual checks, she said. The charge nurse stared at her. What? Every room, now. Sloan appeared from the stairwell at a run. What failed? East circuit. Backup? Partial. He looked down the hall. Then at Leah. For once, there was no argument. Take 8 through 12. Leah moved. Room 910 had switched to battery. Room 911 had not. A post-operative patient's oxygen support alarm was dead. Priya was gone for the night, but Elena Park was already there with a portable unit. Leah helped transfer the connection. Room 912 was stable. Room 913 had a frightened family member standing in the doorway asking why the lights were red. Because the hospital likes drama, Leah said. The woman blinked, then laughed despite herself. Is he okay? Yes. Stay inside the room. We're checking everyone. At 2:16, one of the battery monitors in 914 failed. Leah checked the patient directly. At 2:17, Sloan ordered the floor closed to all movement. At 2:18, engineering reported the main hospital had power. Only the East ICU branch had lost monitored supply. That was when everyone understood it was not a normal outage. Agent Quinn's face hardened. Targeted? The engineer on speaker answered carefully. We don't know. Reed looked at the fake surgeon. The man sat against the wall now, wrist splinted by a security officer, breathing hard. He smiled again. Leah saw it. Not the power, she said. Quinn turned. What? The power is the distraction. Sloan looked at her. For what? Leah looked toward room 908. The Admiral was surrounded by staff and security. Too protected now. Not him. She thought about Bell. Fleetshore. The names. The report. Evidence. Records. Quinn's eyes sharpened. At 2:19, she called the investigation room on level 6. No answer. Again, nothing. Reed was already moving. Quinn followed. Leah stayed. That mattered later. She wanted to go. The old part of her wanted to follow the threat, because that was where information was moving. The nurse in teal scrubs stayed with the patients. At 2:21, power returned. Monitors rebooted. Alarms reset. Sloan stood at the central station watching values repopulate. One by one, Room 910, 911, 912, 9113, 908. Admiral Rainer's heart rate appeared. 88. Oxygen stable. Leah exhaled. Sloane looked at her. You knew what to do before I said anything. She looked at the board. So did Elena. That is not what I asked. You didn't ask anything. He almost smiled. Then the radio at Reed's abandoned station cracked. 6th floor secure room breached. Sloane looked toward Leah. She said nothing. The voice continued. 1 evidence laptop missing. 1 staff analyst injured, conscious. Suspect fled through west stair. The fake surgeon on the floor laughed. Not loudly. Leah turned. He was looking at her. You save people, he said. We save systems. Quinn had left, but one of her agents stepped closer. Don't speak to her. The attacker ignored him. Systems win. Leah looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, You're sitting on a hospital floor with a broken wrist. His smile disappeared. Sloane turned away to hide one. At 2:26, the attacker was moved under armed escort. At 2:32, Rainer was fully awake again. Leah entered because Sloane told her to. That was new too. The Admiral's voice was rough. Did I miss anything? Leah looked at the bruising on his neck. Quiet night. Rainer's mouth moved. Liar. Selective briefing. He tried to swallow. Pain crossed his face. Leah checked the neck swelling again. Does it hurt to breathe? No. Swallow? Yes. Voice worse? I sound distinguished. You sound like gravel. Distinguished gravel. Sloane entered and heard the last line. He looked between them. I'm beginning to understand why you two recognize each other. Rainer's gaze moved to him. This nurse broke a man's wrist for me. Sloane said, I noticed. Do you usually criticize her this much? Leah said, Sir. Rainer ignored her. Sloane answered, Yes. Rainer looked surprised by the honesty. Sloane continued, I am reconsidering several things tonight. Rainer looked at Leah. Good. Leah changed the subject. INSEE's lost evidence during the outage. Rainer's expression hardened. What? Sloane said. Leah. He needs to know. The Admiral looked at Sloane. She's right. Sloane closed his eyes briefly. I knew this would happen. Leah almost smiled. Rainer asked, What evidence? What evidence? Laptop from the preliminary Fleet Shore review. Copies? Unknown. Rainer's right hand tightened on the blanket. They're cleaning. Leah heard the fear beneath the anger. Not fear for himself. Fear that the names would become paperwork again. Quinn will find it. You don't know that. No. Then why say it? Because she looked angry. Rainer stared. Then laughed once and immediately regretted it because his ribs hurt. Don't make me laugh. Then stop asking questions. Sloane looked at Leah. You say things to admirals I would not say to interns. That is why interns are difficult. At 2:47, Agent Quinn returned. The missing laptop had not left the building. A man using a maintenance uniform had been stopped at a locked service door after his borrowed badge failed. He abandoned the bag and ran. Security cameras caught part of his face. He escaped into a construction wing still under renovation. The laptop was recovered. The analyst had a concussion but no major injury. More important, the evidence had already been mirrored to a federal server. The fake outage had achieved nothing except exposing a second operative. Rainer closed his eyes when Quinn told him. Relief. Then exhaustion. Quinn turned to Leah. The man you restrained is named Matthew Krell. Leah waited. Former private maritime security. Contract work overseas. No medical background. Financial ties to a Fleetshore shell consulting firm. Why did he know me? We're working on that. He said I should have stayed invisible. I know. Meaning he knew I was here before tonight. Yes. Leah looked at Reed. The restricted file pull. Reed nodded. Quinn said, "We found one compromised records contractor. He accessed the annex after the command query and forwarded a screenshot outside the system." Leah's jaw tightened. Name? Not one you know. Then how did Krell recognize me? Your service photo was in the screenshot. There it was. Not fate. Not an old enemy remembering her across years. A picture sent by a man who sold access. Ordinary corruption. Somehow that made Leah angrier. Quinn continued. The records contractor is in custody. Rainer said, Fleetshore paid him? Shell company did. Same shell as Krell? Different route, same endpoint is likely. Rainer looked at the ceiling. They built redundancy. Quinn nodded. Like a business. No, Rainer said. Like procurement. Nobody laughed. At 3:15, the ICU returned to controlled normal operations. At 3:31, Sloan ordered Leah to take a break. At 3:33, she refused. At 3:34, he threatened to write her up for insubordination. At 3:35, she went to the break room. Progress came in strange forms. She sat alone with a cup of coffee she did not drink. Her hands were shaking. Not much. Enough. She put them flat on the table. The action had ended 20 minutes earlier. Bodies were often late with fear. The door opened. Priya entered wearing sweatpants and a coat over her clothes. Leah stared. What are you doing here? Priya held up a plastic bag. My mother made food. You went home. Yes. And came back. Yes. Why? Priya looked at Leah's hands. Because I thought you'd forget to eat. Leah looked away. Priya set the bag down. There were 2 containers. Rice, vegetables, something that smelled like cumin and home. My mother said hospital food is punishment. She's correct. Priya sat. Then she noticed the bruise forming across Leah's forearm. Oh my God. It's fine. You broke his wrist. So I've been told. You were there? Leah looked at her. Priya's eyes widened. You were. You actually... Lower your voice. Priya lowered it. You caught him choking the Admiral. Yes. And broke his wrist. Yes. Priya stared at her. Then her face crumpled. Leah frowned. Why are you crying? I don't know. That seems inefficient. Priya laughed while crying. You could have been killed. Leah looked down. Yes. Priya stopped laughing. The honesty changed the room. Leah opened the food container. I wasn't. That is not the same thing. No. Priya wiped her eyes. Were you like Special Forces? Leah chewed. No. But Chief Arden. Hospital corpsman. Special Operations Medical Support. That sounds like Special Forces with extra words. It is not. Did you carry a gun? Leah looked at her. Priya lifted her hands. Sorry. Sometimes. Priya's eyes widened again. Leah pointed the fork at her. Do not make a face. I'm not making a face. You are making several. Priya tried to control it. Failed. Leah laughed. The sound surprised her. At 4:02, she ate everything Priya's mother had sent. At 4:18, she fell asleep sitting upright for 11 minutes. At 4:29, Sloan opened the break room door, saw her asleep, and closed it again without waking her. At 4:41, Leah woke on her own. At 4:58, morning staff began arriving to a hospital surrounded by government vehicles. Rumors moved faster than elevators. By 5:20, Three versions of the attack existed. In one, Leah had disarmed a gunman. In another, she had been secretly assigned to protect the Admiral all along. In the third, she was apparently a retired Navy SEAL. Leah heard that one from Maya Torres in respiratory therapy. "I'm a woman," Leah said. Maya shrugged. "Rumors are inclusive now." Leah stared at her. Maya laughed. At 5:44, Dr. Sloan called an emergency staff huddle. He stood at the central station. 32 people gathered around. Nurses, residents, technicians, respiratory, security. Leah stood in the back. Sloan looked exhausted. His perfect hair was no longer perfect. His white coat had a coffee stain near one pocket. Humanity, Leah thought, had finally reached him. "We had a deliberate security breach," he said. "The individual posing as a surgeon has been detained. A second suspect remains under investigation. No staff member is to discuss patient identity or investigative details outside authorized channels." People nodded. Sloan continued. "During the attack, Nurse Arden intervened before security arrived." Every face turned toward the back. Leah considered leaving. Sloan saw the thought. Stay. She stayed. He looked at the staff. She also directed immediate patient safety checks during the temporary power interruption. Leah said, "Elena did half the floor." Elena Park nodded from the front. Sloan said, "Yes, she did." He continued, "The point is not individual heroics." Leah relaxed slightly. "The point is that preparation matters. Observation matters. Speaking up matters." That caught her. Sloan looked directly at her. "And sometimes the person speaking is seeing something the rest of us have not seen yet." The room was silent. It was not an apology. Not publicly. It was better than the speech Leah expected. Then Sloan ruined it. "Nurse Arden will also be taking mandatory 48-hour leave once federal interviews are complete." Leah stared. People laughed. Sloan looked almost pleased. "Non-negotiable." Leah said, "We'll see." More laughter. At 6:12, Admiral Rainer asked for coffee. Leah said no. At 6:13, he asked Sloan. Sloan said no. At 6:14, Rainer accused them of collusion. At 6:20, his daughter arrived. Her name was Anna Rainer, 41. Dark blonde hair. Same gray eyes as her father and brother. Leah saw her step out of the elevator and immediately had to look away. Anna looked more like Caleb than the Admiral did. Not in shape, in expression. The way worry tightened one side of her mouth. Reed met her. They spoke quietly. Then Anna looked down the hall. Saw Leah. Stopped. Leah knew before anyone told her. Anna walked toward her. "Leah Arden?" Leah stood. "Yes." Anna's eyes filled immediately. "My father said you were here." Leah did not know what to do with her hands. Anna solved it. She hugged her. Hard. Leah froze. Then slowly put both arms around her. Anna whispered, "You stayed with Caleb." Leah closed her eyes. "Yes." "My father told me." "I'm sorry." Anna pulled back. "No." Her voice broke. "Please don't say that first." Leah stared. Anna wiped her face. "For 8 years, when I pictured my brother dying, I pictured him alone because nobody could tell us who was there. Dad knew more than he could say. I knew less than I could stand." Leah's throat tightened. "He wasn't alone." Anna nodded. "I know now." She hugged Leah again. This time Leah did not freeze. Around them, staff looked away politely. Except Priya. Priya cried openly. Maya handed her a tissue. At 6:31, Anna entered her father's room. At 6:43, Leah heard both of them laughing through the door. At 6:47, both of them were crying. At 7:02, Agent Quinn asked Leah to give a full formal statement. It took 2 hours. The questions were exact. What did Krell do? What did Leah see? When did she decide he was attacking? How did she respond? Did she intend to injure him? Leah answered without embellishment. I intended to stop him from reaching the patient. Did you intend to break his wrist? No. Could you have stopped sooner? I stopped when he stopped being able to continue the attack. Quinn looked up. That sounds practiced. It sounds accurate. Do you regret the injury? Leah thought about Rainer's throat under the man's hands. No. Quinn nodded once. Neither did she. At 9:23, the interview shifted. Matthew Krell has requested counsel, Quinn said. Good. He also gave us one name before he stopped talking. Leah waited. Gideon Vale. Who? Fleet Shore Executive Vice President for Compliance and Government Relations. Leah almost laughed. Compliance. Yes. Of course. Quinn slid a photograph across the table. Gideon Vale was 58, clean-shaven, expensive suit, calm smile. Leah had never seen him. He's missing, Quinn said. Since? Midnight. Before Krell went into 908. Yes. Family? Wife at home. Says business trip. Where? She doesn't know. Leah looked at the photograph. Does Rainer know him? Very well. Then tell him. We will. Quinn gathered the papers. Your part is done for now. Leah looked at her. No. Quinn sighed. I see why Sloane looks tired. My patience. You're on mandatory leave. That was Sloane's fantasy. Quinn stared. Then she smiled for the first time. Small. Go home, Chief. Leah's face changed. Quinn lifted one hand. Sorry, nurse. At 9:41, Leah tried to leave. At 9:43, Rainer sent Reed to stop her. Leah saw Reed approaching and kept walking. Don't. He wants 2 minutes. I have given him several. His daughter has something for you. Leah stopped. That was unfair. Reed knew it. Low tactic, she said. I learned from chiefs. Room 908 looked different in daylight. Less dangerous. More damaged. Rainer sat higher now. Anna was beside him holding a small envelope. Leah entered. Anna handed it to her. What is this? Caleb's letter. Leah stepped backward. No. Anna did not move. He wrote about you. I don't need it. Maybe not. Anna's eyes filled. But he wanted us to know who he trusted. I think you should know that too. Leah looked at Rainer. The Admiral said nothing. That mattered. No order. No pressure. Choice. Leah took the envelope. It was old. Opened many times. Her hands shook more holding that paper than they had facing Krell. Anna said, You don't have to read it here. Leah nodded. Thank you. Rainer said, You kept the promise. Leah looked at him. What promise? To tell me he wasn't alone. 8 years late. Still kept. Leah looked down. Rainer continued. People think time cancels debts. It should cancel some. Not this one. I don't want you to owe me. I don't. She looked up. Rainer's eyes were steady. I'm grateful. That's different. Leah had spent years avoiding gratitude because it felt like a spotlight on the people she could not save. Now, for once, she let it stand. Okay. At 10:02, she left the hospital. At 10:11, she sat in her car. At 10:24, she was still sitting there. The envelope lay on the passenger seat. At 10:31, she opened it. The letter was 7 pages. Caleb's handwriting was terrible. That made her laugh before she got through the first line. He wrote about Anna's new house, his father's refusal to retire, a dog he wanted when the deployment ended, the terrible coffee at the forward site. Then, on page 5, there's a chief here named Arden who scares every officer in the building, which I mean as a compliment. She pretends she doesn't care whether we like her. I think she cares too much. If something goes wrong, I'd want her in the room. Leah stopped reading. Her vision blurred. She pressed the paper to her mouth. For 8 years, the memory she carried was Caleb dying while she failed to stop it. His memory of her, written before that day, was that he wanted her there if something went wrong. And she had been. It did not make his death right. It did not erase 21 minutes. It changed one thing. She had not failed him by being the person beside him. At 10:38, Leah Arden cried in her car. Not quietly, not efficiently. For the first time in years, she let grief take up the amount of space it actually needed. At 11:12, she drove home. At 11:41, she fell asleep on top of the blankets. She slept for 9 hours. When she woke, there were 17 messages. 3 from Priya, 2 from Sloan, 1 from Reed, 1 from Anna, 4 from numbers she did not know, 6 automated hospital alerts she ignored. The message from Sloan said, "Do not come in tomorrow." The second said, "This is a medical order if that helps." Leah smiled. Priya's first message said, "My mom wants to know if you liked the food." The second, "This is more important than the assassination investigation." The third, "She says your answer should be yes." Leah replied, "Yes." Anna's message was a photograph. Admiral Rainer asleep, one hand open on the blanket. Caption, "He asked for coffee again. We said no. He is planning revenge." Leah replied, "Good sign." Reed's message was shorter. Veil found. Leah sat up. She called. Reed answered immediately. "You were supposed to rest. You texted me that Veil was found. I did not say call. Where?" Airport outside Baltimore. Running? Apparently business travel can involve 3 passports. That seems excessive. He is in custody. Evidence? Enough to keep him there. Leah exhaled. Reed continued. The contractor records guy flipped. And Fleet Shore paid to bury failure reports. Vail authorized consultant accounts. Krell was used for intimidation twice before. Before? 2 inspectors withdrew complaints after threats. Were they hurt? One had a car incident. Survived. Leah's jaw tightened. The pier. Still proving direct chain. And the hospital? We have messages referencing medical closure. Leah closed her eyes. Closure. Yes. Nice word. They like words that don't sound like murder. Leah stood and walked to the kitchen. Who else? 3 executives detained. 2 procurement officials suspended pending investigation. Credential vendor locked down. Bell's friend? Reed was quiet. The Barron failure is being reopened. Leah leaned against the counter. That matters. Yes. Tell Bell. Already did. How is he? Cried. Leah looked out the window. Good. Reed laughed softly. You're strange. I've heard. At 9 o'clock the next morning, Leah did not go to work. At 9:06, she considered it. At 9:07, Sloan called. Don't! Leah stared at the phone. Are you watching my house? No. Then how? I know you. That is uncomfortable. You are on leave. I'm fine. You fought an assassin 31 hours ago. He did most of the fighting. You broke his wrist. That keeps coming up. Stay home. Leah sat on the couch. "Why do you care?" Silence. Then Sloane said, "Because I was wrong about you." Leah did not answer. He continued, "Not about everything. There he is. But about the important part." She waited. "I thought your refusal to defer was ego." Leah looked at Caleb's letter on the table. "And? It wasn't. Sometimes it is." That surprised him. "You admit that?" "I contain multitudes." Sloane sighed. "I'm trying to apologize. You're doing badly." "I know." Leah smiled despite herself. Sloane's voice became serious. "I used your quietness as evidence that I understood you. I didn't." That landed. Leah said nothing. "I also wrote 3 evaluations that framed your clinical advocacy as boundary difficulty." "Yes. I'm amending them." Leah sat straighter. "Why?" "Because they were incomplete. Don't erase the disagreements." "I wasn't planning to." "Good. I'm adding context." "What context?" "That you repeatedly identified deterioration before escalation, and that your challenges resulted in documented patient benefit." Leah looked down. "Okay. And I want you on the Trauma Quality Council." "No." "I knew you would say that." "Then why ask?" "Hope. Unprofessional." He laughed. "Stay home, Arden." "Fine." She hung up. At 11:18, Priya arrived with more food. At 11:19, Leah threatened to report her for harassment. At 11:20, Priya told her mother. At 11:21, Leah apologized. The next 2 days were quieter than the first. News reports mentioned a security incident at Tidewater Memorial and an ongoing federal investigation into Fleet Shore maritime systems. They did not name Rainer immediately. They did not name Leah. That lasted 48 hours. Then someone leaked a security summary. By Friday morning, the story had escaped the hospital. Wounded Admiral survives hospital attack. Nurse stops fake surgeon. Former Navy medic intervenes in assassination attempt. Leah stared at the headlines from her kitchen, then turned off her phone. At 10:03, someone knocked. She opened the door. Commander Reed stood there holding coffee. "No, I haven't said anything. You brought media problems to my house. I brought coffee. Same thing." He held up the cup. "It is good coffee. That would be a first." She let him in. Reed sat at the small kitchen table. "You're getting requests." "I know. CNN." "No." "Local news." "No." "Navy Public Affairs." "Absolutely not." "Hospital communications." "Block them." Reed smiled. "I told them you'd say that." Leah sat. "Why are you here?" "Rainer is being moved tomorrow." "To military hospital?" "Yes." "Stable enough?" Sloane signed. "Then good." "He wants to see you before he leaves." Leah looked at the coffee. "Why?" "He said he wants to return something." "What?" "Would ruin the surprise." "I hate surprises." "I know." At 7:40 Saturday morning, Leah returned to Tidewater Memorial. She wore teal scrubs. Not because she was working, because Sloane had told her civilian clothes might confuse staff into thinking she understood leave. She did it out of spite. The lobby security officer saw her and stood. "Morning, Chief." Leah stopped. He smiled. "Sorry. Nurse." She pointed at him. "Dangerous habit." He laughed. On level 9, the mood was different. No lockdown. No red emergency lights. No fake credentials. Rainer sat in a wheelchair by the window. Anna stood beside him. Reed was near the door. Sloane was reviewing transfer papers. Bell, arm still splinted, had been wheeled up from 7. Leah stopped in the doorway. "That's too many people." Rainer looked over. "You came." I was manipulated. Military tradition. Anna smiled. Rainer held something in his right hand. Small. Silver. Leah knew it before she saw it clearly. Caleb's ring. Her chest tightened. No, Rainer said. I'm not giving it to you. She exhaled. Good. I'm showing you. He turned it between his fingers. Anna gave him this when he commissioned. I know. Rainer looked up. You put it in his property envelope. Yes. You wrote on the inventory that it had been removed intact. Yes. Why? Leah frowned. Because it was intact. Rainer smiled sadly. Exactly. He closed his hand around it. In the official notification process, everything felt like it had become a category. Personal effects, remains, incident report, cause, timeline. His voice weakened. That one word, intact, was the first thing that sounded like somebody had actually seen him. Leah's eyes filled. Rainer continued. You saw him. Yes. You saw me this week too. Leah looked at the bruises around his throat. Hard to miss. He laughed and winced. Sloane said, please stop encouraging him. Rainer ignored him. Fleet sure is being dismantled. Bell looked up. Rainer turned toward him. The Barron case is reopened. Liam Chen's maintenance record has been formally cleared pending final review. Bell's face changed. What? Rainer nodded. The initial inspection already found the maintenance blame unsupported. Bell covered his mouth with his good hand. His shoulders shook. Anna went to him. Leah looked away. Rainer said, that is why this mattered. Leah looked back. Not because someone tried to kill me, because dead people don't get to argue with paperwork. Bell was crying openly now. Rainer's own eyes were wet. My son did not get to argue with the story people told about his last day either. Leah stood very still. But you gave me the truth. His voice broke. And this week, you gave another family a chance to get theirs. Nobody spoke. Even Sloane looked down. Rainer held out his hand. Not the ring, just his hand. Leah took it. Thank you, Chief Arden. This time she did not correct him. Around the room, everyone noticed. Rainer smiled. There she is. Leah shook her head. Don't get comfortable. At 8:22, the Admiral left Tidewater Memorial under escort. Staff lined the corridor because somebody had started it and everyone else followed. Leah stood near the back. Rainer's wheelchair passed Sloane. He shook the surgeon's hand. Past Priya. He thanked her for keeping Arden fed, which caused Priya to cry again. Then he reached Leah. The chair stopped. Rainer looked up. Come here. Leah leaned down. He hugged her. One arm. Careful because of his ribs. She froze for half a second, then hugged him back. He whispered, Caleb was right about you. Leah's eyes closed. Which part? Too much. She understood. He cared too much, Caleb had written. About her. About everyone. Leah stepped back. Rainer's eyes were wet. So were hers. The wheelchair moved. At the elevator, the Admiral raised 2 fingers in a small salute. Leah returned it before she could stop herself. The doors closed. Nobody in the corridor moved for several seconds. Then Priya whispered, Okay, that was a lot. Leah laughed through tears. Yes. Sloane handed her a tissue. She looked at it. Prepared. I learn. The investigation continued for 4 months. Matthew Krell was charged with attempted murder, assault, identity fraud, and conspiracy. The second operative from the evidence theft was arrested 3 days later in a motel outside Fredericksburg. Gideon Vale was indicted on federal conspiracy, fraud, obstruction, and bribery charges tied to Fleet Shore's testing program. Several procurement officials were charged or removed. Others were cleared. That mattered too. A real investigation could not become revenge simply because revenge felt satisfying. The Barron report was rewritten. Liam Chen's family received an official correction stating there was no evidence his maintenance had caused the equipment failure that killed him. Marcus Bell flew to California for the meeting with Liam's mother. He sent Leah one message afterward. She said thank you. Leah replied, "Tell her his friend never doubted him." Bell answered, "She knows." Fleet Shore's defective equipment was removed from service while contracts were reviewed. New procurement rules required independent verification on life support safety testing. The words were dry. The consequences were not. At Tidewater Memorial, things changed too. Not magically. Hospitals did not become wise because one night went badly. Sloan still liked hierarchy. Leah still disliked meetings. Priya still left coffee cups in places that annoyed everyone. Equipment still failed. Families still cried in hallways. Residents still made mistakes. People still missed things. But one sentence changed on the trauma evaluation form. Clinical concern raised by any team member. Documented/addressed pending. Sloan added it himself. When Leah saw the draft, she looked at him. This is ugly. It is functional. The spacing is terrible. Arden. I'm helping. He sighed. Do you approve the concept? Yes. Then stop criticizing the font. No. At the first staff meeting after her return, Sloan stood in front of the department. Leah knew something bad was coming because there was a projector. Sloan began with patient outcomes, then process changes, then security review. Then he put up a slide titled Speaking Before Certainty. Leah crossed her arms. Sloan looked at her. You hate this already. Yes. People laughed. He looked back at the room. We teach junior staff to escalate when they see deterioration. Then, culturally, we sometimes punish them for doing exactly that if their concern challenges someone senior. The room became quieter. Sloan continued. I have done that. Leah looked up. Public admissions were not his habit. He looked directly at her. I did it to Nurse Arden repeatedly. Nobody moved. I was fortunate that she continued speaking anyway. Leah's throat tightened. Sloan looked back at the room. Do not make your team require courage to tell you the truth. That sentence stayed, not because it was elegant, because Sloan meant it. After the meeting, Priya found Leah by the lockers. You okay? Yes. That was another bad lie. Leah looked at her. Priya smiled. You taught me. Leah sat on the bench. I don't know what to do when people apologize correctly. Terrible problem. Deeply. Priya sat beside her. So what happens now? What do you mean? You're famous. I am not. There are videos called Nurse Breaks Assassin's Wrist. Leah closed her eyes. I hate the internet. One has 4 million views. Why would you tell me that? Transparency. Leah put her head against the locker. Priya laughed. Are you going back to the Navy? No. Federal job? No. Security consultant? No. TV nurse? Leah turned slowly. Priya laughed harder. Okay. Leah looked at her hands. I'm staying here. Why? Because this is where my work is. Priya nodded. Good. Leah looked at her. Why good? Because I still need someone to tell me when I'm being an idiot. That service is available everywhere. Not with your efficiency. 1 year after the attack, a memorial plaque was installed at Naval Logistics Pier 4. It did not mention Fleet Shore. It named the sailors who died in the equipment failures that the investigation had reopened. Liam Chen, Robert Mills, Daniel Ortega. 2 additional deaths were added after review. 5 names. Admiral Rainer, now retired, invited Leah to the ceremony. She almost declined. Then Bell called. "Liam's mom wants you there." Leah said yes. The day was windy. The harbor water was gray. Families stood beneath a white canopy while sailors held flags that snapped in the air. There were speeches. Leah disliked speeches. Then Liam's mother walked to the microphone. She was small, silver-haired, and stronger than the people around her seemed to realize. "My son died twice," she said. The crowd became still. The first time was on the Baron. The second was when a report said his carelessness caused the failure that killed him. Bell bowed his head. Leah's throat tightened. Liam's mother continued. "One death I could not change. The second, people in this room helped give back." She looked toward Rainer. Then Bell. Then Leah. "My son was not careless." Bell began crying. So did half the row behind him. "He did his job." The words moved through the wind. Simple. Enough. After the ceremony, Liam's mother found Leah. "You believed Marcus." Leah shook her head. "He believed Liam. And you believed him." "I listened." The woman took Leah's hands. "That is sometimes the same thing." Leah had no argument. Rainer joined them. Rainer joined them. No uniform now, just a dark suit. Retired looked strange on him. Healthier. He looked at the plaque. 5 names. Leah nodded. Too many. Too many. Yes, but not hidden anymore. No. They stood there. A year earlier, the story had seemed to be about a fake surgeon's hands around an admiral's throat. That was the image people remembered. The image that made headlines. The image that made strangers call Leah brave. But the real story had begun long before Room 908. It began every time someone saw something wrong and was told the official explanation was enough. A sailor blamed for equipment he had maintained correctly. A nurse told observation was not interpretation. A grieving father given a classified summary instead of the truth of his son's last minutes. A contractor assuming paperwork could bury human consequences. A woman who believed being quiet would keep the past from following her. Systems liked clean answers. People were rarely clean. Truth was usually inconvenient. It arrived from the wrong person. At the wrong time. In the wrong tone. Sometimes it wore faded teal scrubs and had a personnel file full of notes about boundaries. Sometimes it was a petty officer with a broken arm saying his friend was not careless. Sometimes it was an admiral refusing to accept 3 identical accidents as coincidence. And sometimes it was nothing more dramatic than a nurse looking through a glass panel at 2:11 in the morning and trusting what she saw before everyone else understood it. A man's hands around a patient's throat. A second that mattered. Leah moved. The wrist broke. The admiral lived. But that was not why Thomas Rainer remembered her. He remembered her because 8 years earlier, when his son was dying, she had stayed. Not fixed. Not saved. Stayed. There were jobs medicine could do. There were jobs it could not. Sometimes the only thing left was not to leave. That truth had taken Leah 8 years to understand. 16 months after the attack, she was working a night shift when a new resident called her into Trauma 3. The patient was a fisherman in his 50s with chest pain that had mostly resolved. The first tests were reassuring. The resident wanted discharge pending one final lab. Leah stood at the bed. Something bothered her. Not a dramatic sign. The patient kept rubbing one thumb against the side of his index finger. A repetitive motion. He was sweating slightly despite saying the pain was gone. Leah asked him to describe the first 5 minutes again. The resident looked impatient. Only a little, Leah noticed. The fisherman described pressure, then nausea, then a strange weakness in his jaw. Leah looked at the monitor. Then the resident. "What are you seeing?" she asked. He frowned. "Vitals are stable. That's what the screen is seeing." He looked back at the patient. Really looked. The impatience left his face. He ordered another test. The result changed the plan. The patient stayed. Treatment started. Nothing dramatic happened. Nobody ran. No admiral appeared. No cameras waited outside. No one broke a wrist. At 3:42 in the morning, the fisherman's wife squeezed Leah's hand and said, "Thank you for not sending him home." Leah nodded. At 3:51, she returned to the nurse station. Sloan was there reviewing a chart. He looked up. "Good catch." Leah sat. The resident caught it. "You made him look again." He looked. Sloan nodded. That distinction mattered. Priya came around the corner carrying 3 coffees. She put one in front of Leah. Leah tasted it. Stopped. "This is good." Priya looked offended. "I have been making good coffee for a year." "No." "Yes." "No." Sloan tasted his. "She's right." Priya pointed at him. "You are both terrible people. You are both terrible people." Leah smiled. Her phone buzzed. A message from Rainer. He sent photographs now. Mostly boring ones. Grocery stores, because Leah had questioned whether he understood them. This photograph showed a shopping cart with bread, milk, oranges, and 6 identical frozen dinners. Caption: "Civilian logistics operation successful." Leah laughed. Priya looked over her shoulder. "Is that the Admiral?" "Former. He buys 6 of the same dinner? He needs intervention." Sloan said, "Outside my specialty." Leah typed, "Buy a vegetable." The response came immediately. "Oranges are vegetable adjacent." Leah shook her head. At 4:03, an alarm sounded in Trauma 1. All 3 of them moved. That was the ending Leah would have chosen if anybody had asked her. Not a ceremony. Not a medal. Not the moment the wounded admiral called her chief in front of everyone who had underestimated her. Not the arrest. Not even Caleb's letter. The ending was work continuing. A room needing help. People moving together. Nobody wasting time deciding whose observation counted enough to be spoken. Leah entered Trauma 1 beside Sloan and Priya. A young nurse at the bed looked frightened. "I think something changed," she said. Sloan did not dismiss her. He did not ask whether she was certain. He looked at the patient. "What are you seeing?" The nurse told him. Everyone listened. And that was how a system changed. Not all at once. Not because one hidden hero was finally recognized. Because after recognition, the lesson remained when the hero was no longer the one speaking. At 4:05, the team acted. At 4:11, the patient stabilized. At 4:18, the frightened nurse sat in the supply room and cried from relief. Leah found her there. "I'm sorry," the nurse said. "For what?" "I almost didn't say anything." Leah sat beside her. "But you did. What if I'd been wrong? Then we would have looked and been glad." The nurse wiped her face. Dr. Sloan listened. Leah smiled faintly. "He's trainable." "From the doorway," Sloan said, "I can hear you." Leah looked over. "I know." The young nurse laughed. Sloan shook his head and left. Leah stayed another 3 minutes. Not because the nurse needed treatment. Because she needed someone not to leave yet. 3 minutes. Then 5. Then the nurse's breathing slowed. Leah stood. "Ready?" The nurse nodded. They went back to work. Outside, dawn was beginning to lighten the windows over the harbor. The same water that had carried ships, sailors, secrets, and grief for generations reflected a pale strip of mourning. Leah did not think of herself as Chief Arden. Not most days. She did not think of herself as the nurse who broke an assassin's wrist. She did not think of herself as the woman an admiral had thanked in front of a hospital. She thought of herself as Leah, a nurse. Now, a person who had learned that quiet did not have to mean invisible. A person who had learned that being unable to save everyone did not erase the people she had saved, or the people she had stayed beside when saving was no longer possible. At 6:58, her shift ended. At 7:03, she was still charting. At 7:04, Sloan walked past. Go home. Almost done. You always say that. It keeps being true. He looked at the chart. 5 minutes. 7, 6. Fine. He walked away. Priya stood beside Leah with her coat on. You realize the most unbelievable part of your entire life is that you just negotiated with Sloan and both of you compromised. Leah saved the note. Growth. Terrifying. At 7:10, they walked toward the elevators. A television in the waiting area was showing a news story about Fleet Shore's former executives entering federal court. Gideon Vale's face filled the screen. Leah did not stop. Priya did. That's him. Yes. Aren't you going to watch? No. Why? Leah pressed the elevator button. Because that part belongs to the court now. The doors opened. Priya stepped inside. Leah followed. As the doors closed, the news anchor's voice disappeared. They rode down in silence. On the first floor, Priya went toward the garage. Leah went toward the main entrance. The morning air was cold. She stood outside for 1 second. Breathed. Her phone buzzed. Another message from Rainer. A photograph of a single bag of spinach in his shopping cart. Caption, "Are you happy now?" Leah smiled. She typed, "Provisionally." Then she put the phone away. She walked to her car. She walked to her car. No security detail. No black SUVs. No one waiting to call her chief. Just mourning. That was enough. Because the most important moment in Leah Arden's story had never been the second everyone finally saw who she had been. It was the second she stopped believing her past was the only proof that her voice deserved to matter. At Tidewater Memorial, she had been right sometimes, wrong sometimes, difficult sometimes, quiet often, human always. And when a fake surgeon put his hands around a wounded admiral's throat, she did what she had spent her whole life doing. She saw the problem. She moved. She paid the cost afterward. Only this time, the cost was not another piece of herself disappearing. This time, when the room looked at her and finally understood there was more to the quiet nurse than they had assumed, Leah did not run from being seen. She stayed.